Story 1. The reason I remember everything so clearly is because my life before him was normal. Not perfect, not movie like, just normal in the boring way that makes you feel safe without even realizing it. I lived in a typical middle class neighborhood, one of those places where everyone knows everyone, but not deeply. People recognize faces, exchange small talk, complain about electricity cuts, argue about parking, and pretend they don't hear the fights from the house 2 doors away. I wasn't the kind of person who went looking for trouble. I wasn't a brave kid either. I was the kind who liked routines because routines made the world feel predictable. School in the morning, tuition in the evening, a short walk to the shop home before it got too late. That was my life. I had friends, but I wasn't the type to stay out late with them. I liked my room, I liked my phone. I liked having the door closed and music low enough that my parents wouldn't complain. My parents were strict in the normal way, strict enough to ask where I was going, but not strict enough to control every breath I took. I also wasn't someone who got scared easily. I watched horror videos. I read creepy threads online. I'd even laugh at jump scares sometimes, but those were stories, those were safe. Because when you close the screen, the horror stays inside the screen. Real life wasn't supposed to be like that. Real life was supposed to be annoying at worst. A stray dog chasing you, a neighbor yelling, a power cut at the wrong time, nothing more. That's why the man under the streetlight felt so wrong, because he didn't enter my life like a sudden attack. He entered like a stain, slow, quiet, unavoidable. And the scariest part is, I didn't even know why he picked me. I wasn't special, I didn't have enemies, I didn't have secrets. I was just someone who walked the same lane every day, at the same time living the same ordinary life, which meant if he had been watching, he had probably been watching for a long time. Even before I noticed, even before the first day I saw him. And if that's true, then the first time I noticed him wasn't the start of the stalking. It was just the first time he allowed me to realize it. The first time I noticed him, I didn't feel fear, not immediately. It was the kind of thing you only realize later when you replay the memory and suddenly understand why your stomach tightened for no reason, why your pace changed without you deciding to, why you held your keys a little harder in your fist. It was around 7:40 p.m., that awkward hour when the neighborhood still has movement but the day has already died. The sun was gone, but the sky still carried a dull bluish grey like a bruise. Streetlights were starting to flicker on. The air smelled like dust and warm concrete. I had gone to the small shop near the lane entrance. A simple trip, a packet of chips, maybe a cold drink. Nothing that should have mattered. I remember because I was walking back slowly, half distracted, my eyes scanning the street without really focusing on anything. And that's when I saw him. A man standing under the streetlight near the entrance of our lane. He wasn't leaning against anything. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't talking on the phone. He wasn't smoking. He wasn't even looking down the road like someone waiting for a bus or a friend. He was just standing still as if he had been planted there. The light above him buzzed faintly and it didn't sit on him properly. It lit the road around him, but his face stayed oddly shadowed, like the darkness was clinging to him. His clothes were plain, dark shirt, dark trousers. His shoes looked clean. Too clean for someone standing on a dusty street. His hair was combed, neat, and his posture was straight, too straight. And his hands hung by his sides like they didn't belong to him. Loose, heavy, unmoving. I slowed down without realizing it. I didn't want to stare, but you know how it is. When something looks wrong, your eyes keep coming back to it like a magnet. For a second I looked at his face, and the moment I did, he turned his head slightly. Not quickly, not in a way that screamed, "I'm watching you." Just a slow, subtle shift, like he had already been aware of me long before I noticed him. I felt a strange cold sensation move through my chest. It wasn't panic yet, it was that uncomfortable feeling of being seen, like I'd accidentally walked onto a stage. I looked down pretending I hadn't noticed, then I walked faster. The packet of chips crinkling too loudly in the silence. When I reached my house, I didn't look back, but I could feel him behind me. I could feel that invisible pressure on the back of my neck, like ice pressing against skin. That night, I forgot about him, or at least I tried to. The next day I went out again, same time, same place, and he was there, under the same streetlight, in the same spot, standing the same way. It hit me then how precise it was. His shoes were lined up with the same crack in the road. His shoulders sat at the same angle. Even his head tilt was identical. It wasn't like he was just often there. It was like he was repeating a scene, like a video being played again. I stopped for a moment at the edge of the lane, watching him. He didn't move, not even a little, and I realized something that made my throat tighten. He wasn't looking around. He wasn't watching the street. He was staring straight ahead at my lane, at the line of houses, at my direction. That's when I went inside faster than usual, closing the gate with more force than I needed to. The third day I saw him again, same time, same spot, and this time I felt my fear properly. It arrived like a weight, heavy and slow, because coincidences don't repeat like that. People don't stand the same way, at the same time, in the same place, for 3 days straight, unless they have a reason. I told myself maybe he was waiting for someone who lived nearby. But the more I watched, the more that excuse died. He didn't look like a man waiting, he looked like a man watching. That night, I told my mother casually, like I didn't care, "Have you seen that man near the lane entrance?" My mother didn't answer right away. She was in the kitchen, rinsing vegetables, her hands paused under the tap. Then she said, without turning around, "Don't stare at strangers," that was all. But her voice wasn't normal. It had that slight tightness adults get when they're trying to sound calm while their mind is screaming. I went quiet. I didn't ask again, but from that day on I started paying attention. Every evening at 7:40 p.m. he appeared. Every night at 9:15 p.m. he was gone. Always those exact times, like clockwork. The neighborhood itself started feeling different because of him. Street sounds seemed sharper. Dogs barking sounded more aggressive. The flicker of streetlights felt more threatening. Even the wind felt like it carried whispers. And then, one evening he moved. I noticed a change immediately, because my brain had started expecting him like part of the street itself. But he wasn't at the entrance. He was halfway down the lane, closer. The streetlight above him flickered, buzzing like an insect. It cast a weak, uneven glow that made his face look even less real. My heart started beating so hard it made my ears throb. I slowed down. He didn't move. I tried walking on the opposite side of the road, increasing the distance between us. His head turned slowly, tracking me, not obvious enough for anyone else to notice, but I noticed because I felt it, that sensation of being followed without footsteps. When I passed him, I kept my eyes forward, but my entire body was screaming. I reached my house, got inside, locked the gate, and only then I allowed myself to breathe properly. I looked back through the bars. He was still standing there, in the lane, facing my house. Not facing the street, not facing the shop, facing my house, and then he lifted his hand. Not a wave, not a gesture. He just lifted it slightly, as if testing whether he should touch something. Then he lowered it again, like he was practicing. That night I didn't sleep. Not properly. Every sound in the house felt louder. Every creak of wood sounded like footsteps. Every dog bark outside sounded like a warning. The next evening, I decided I wouldn't go out. I told myself if I stayed inside, I wouldn't see him. I wouldn't give him a reason to look. I watched from my window instead, keeping the curtains slightly closed so only a small gap showed the street. At 7:40 p.m., he appeared, but not under the streetlight, not at the lane entrance, not halfway down the lane. This time he was standing directly outside my gate, so close that the streetlight behind him made his shadow stretch up the wall of my house. My throat went dry instantly. I could see him clearly now. His face was normal in the way a mask is normal. No scars, no strange features, no obvious threat, but his expression was wrong, because he wasn't staring like a stranger. He was staring like someone who had memorized the place, like someone who had imagined it. He lifted his hand and placed his palm flat against my gate, not shaking it, not knocking, just pressing, holding it there, like he was feeling the metal, like he was confirming it existed. Then he leaned closer. His forehead nearly touched the bars, and I saw his smile. It wasn't wide, It wasn't friendly. It wasn't even creepy in a dramatic way. It was small, private, satisfied, like he was smiling at something he owned. I stepped back from the window, my skin crawling, my hands were shaking. I didn't want him to see me watching, but I couldn't stop. I went back to the curtain gap. He was still there. Then, very slowly, he tilted his head upward and looked directly at my window, the exact gap where my eye was. And I realized something terrifying. He wasn't guessing where I was. He knew. He had always known. I backed away so fast I hit the wall. The next thing I remember is sitting on my bed, my heart pounding so hard it felt like my ribs would crack. I didn't go near the window again. At 9:15 p.m., the neighborhood went quiet. I heard a dog bark once, then silence, and finally I heard the soft squeak of the gate. Not my gate, the lane gate near the entrance, then nothing. I didn't sleep. I stayed awake until sunrise. The next day I convinced myself it was over, that maybe he had just been some weird person. Maybe he had been waiting for someone. Maybe he had been drunk. Maybe, but the moment I stepped outside in the afternoon, I noticed something that made my stomach flip. There was a mark on my gate, not paint, not dirt, a handprint. A faint, greasy handprint where his palm had pressed. It wasn't big, but it was clear enough to show the lines of his skin, and I don't know why, but that handprint felt like a warning, like a signature. That night, I tried to act normal. I went to bed. I kept the lights off. I kept the curtains shut, but around 3:10 a.m., my phone buzzed. The vibration sounded like a scream in the quiet. I grabbed it, my hands shaking. Unknown number. A message, no text, just a photo. I opened it and my blood turned to ice. It was a photo of my gate, taken from outside. The angle was low, like the person had crouched, and in the reflection of the metal bars, I saw myself standing behind the gate, my face pale, my eyes wide, staring out. Meaning whoever took the photo took it while I was there, watching, but I didn't remember going to the gate. I didn't remember standing there. I didn't remember opening the curtain. And yet the photo proved I had. The next message arrived. Another photo, this time a close-up of the handprint, then a final message, a single sentence. You watch me back in your sleep. I sat there in the dark, staring at my phone, feeling something thick and sick rise in my chest. Because suddenly a thought entered my mind that made my entire body feel cold. What if he wasn't outside every night to watch me? What if he was outside to make sure I didn't leave? Story 2. I used to think I lived in a quiet neighborhood. Not the kind of quiet where you hear your own thoughts too loudly. Just the ordinary quiet of a middle-class lane where people watered plants at sunset and argued about parking spaces like it was life or death. The kind of place where you could step outside in your slippers to collect the newspaper and feel safe doing it. I moved there because I needed that kind of safe. After everything that happened, after the mess of my last apartment and the long months of being watched in a way I couldn't prove, I wanted somewhere dull, somewhere predictable, somewhere where nobody looked at you for too long. I was 24 when I moved into house 17B, the one with the chipped green gate and the bougainvillea that looked like it was always dying. My parents thought it was too far from them, but I wanted distance. Not from them, from the version of myself that kept feeling like prey. I worked from home mostly, content writing, small freelance projects, the kind of work where you can live in pajamas and nobody cares. I told myself that was freedom. But sometimes in the evenings when the neighborhood got quiet and the sky went purple, I'd feel the old fear crawl up again, like a hand under the bed. That's why I started ordering things online more than I should have. It sounds stupid, but it felt like control. If I ordered my groceries, I didn't have to go out. If I ordered shampoo, I didn't have to walk to the store. If I ordered a phone charger, I didn't have to make eye contact with strangers. Boxes at the door were easier than people. At least that's what I thought. The first time I saw him, it was barely anything. A delivery guy, helmet, uniform, a package in his hand, the usual. I opened the door just enough to reach out and take it, and he stood there on my porch like he had all the time in the world. Not rude, not pushy, just still. His eyes went past me into my house. It lasted maybe 2 seconds, 3, but it made my skin tighten. OTP, he asked. I gave it, he typed it into his phone. The screen glow lit his face from below, making his cheekbones look sharp. He didn't leave immediately. He looked up again. "Mom?"
You live alone?
he asked, like it was casual. My throat did something weird, like it forgot what swallowing was. I laughed. A stupid reflex laugh. "No." He nodded slowly, as if he already knew. "Okay then," he walked away. And I stood there in the doorway, holding a small cardboard box I didn't even remember ordering, feeling like something had just brushed my spine. I told myself I was overreacting. Delivery guys ask weird questions. Sometimes people are nosy. The neighborhood aunties would probably ask me the same thing if they got the chance. Still, when I closed the door, I locked it twice. After that, I started noticing him more. Not every day, not even every week, but often enough that it became a pattern. He wasn't always delivering to me. Sometimes he was across the street, handing a parcel to the Sharma family. Sometimes he was at the corner house. Sometimes he was parked near the little temple at the end of the lane, sitting on his bike, phone in hand. And every time I saw him, I got the same feeling, like my body recognized him before my brain did. He had a way of standing that made it seem like he belonged wherever he was. His shoulders relaxed, his feet planted like roots. Even when he was waiting, he didn't look impatient. He looked settled. His helmet was scratched. His uniform always looked clean, but his shoes were worn down. He had thin wrists, long fingers, the kind of hands that made me think of spiders. The first time I saw him without the helmet, I realized he was younger than I thought, maybe late 20s. His hair was cropped short, but it didn't sit right, like he cut it himself with a cheap trimmer. His face was narrow, almost handsome if you didn't look too long. But if you did look too long, something about his eyes ruined it. They weren't empty, they were too full, too alert, like he was constantly collecting information. It started with small things. The doorbell would ring when I wasn't expecting anything. I'd check the peephole and see nobody. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps on the porch, slow, measured, then nothing. Once, I opened the door quickly, like a reflex, and saw the delivery guy at the gate already halfway down the path, like he'd just been leaving. He looked back at me and smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not a sorry wrong house smile. A smile like he'd won something. I froze, my hand still on the door. He lifted his fingers in a little wave. Casual, almost playful. Then he walked away. I didn't sleep properly that night. I started keeping my curtains closed. I stopped ordering so much. I told myself it was just my anxiety. That I was letting old fear rewrite normal events. That I was projecting. But the neighborhood itself started changing in my head. The lane felt narrower. The trees felt closer. The streetlights looked dimmer. Every sound outside felt like it was meant for me. I began checking the peephole too often, checking the locks too often, checking my phone too often. I even started timing the delivery schedules, like if I could predict his appearance, I could stop being surprised by it. It didn't help, because he didn't appear randomly, he appeared deliberately. The first real incident happened on a Wednesday. I remember because Wednesdays were my cleaning day. The one day I tried to pretend I was a functioning adult. I had music playing softly while I swept. I was in shorts and an oversized t-shirt, hair tied up, trying to feel normal. The doorbell rang. I paused. I hadn't ordered anything. I muted the music. My heart was already doing that thing where it sped up before I even knew why. I walked to the door and checked the peephole. It was him, helmet on, package in hand. My stomach dropped. I should have just not opened it. I should have ignored it. But something in me, the same part that always tries to be polite, to not make things awkward, moved my hand. I opened the door a crack. "Yes?" I asked. He lifted the package slightly.
Delivery.
"For who?" He tilted his head.
For you?
I frowned. "I didn't order anything." He looked down at his phone, scrolling, then nodded like he was confirming something.
Name is correct.
"What name?" he said. "My full name. Not just the first name. Not just the name on my door. My full name." I felt my mouth go dry. "How do you OTP?" he interrupted, like it was normal. "I'm not giving you OTP for something I didn't order." He stared at me through the gap in the door. Then very slowly he smiled again.
Okay.
He said softly, Then I will return it. He didn't move. I waited. He continued standing there, looking at me like he was memorizing my face. I swallowed. You can leave. He blinked like he'd forgotten he was supposed to. Then he stepped back, still smiling as he walked away. He said, almost casually,
You should keep your curtains open sometimes. It's nice to see sunlight.
My blood turned cold because my curtains were closed. I hadn't opened them all day. That night, I sat on my bed with my phone in my hand, staring at the number for the local police station. My thumb hovered over it, and then I thought of what I would say. Hi. A delivery guy said something creepy. He smiled weirdly. He looked at my curtains. It sounded stupid. It sounded like the kind of thing people laughed about. Like the kind of thing people said was in your head. And worse, if I called and nothing happened, and he found out I imagined him outside my house, smiling that same smile. So I didn't call. Instead, I texted my friend Ria. Bro, I think there's a creepy delivery guy in my lane. Like, how creepy? Like, he keeps showing up, asked if I live alone. And today he said he likes seeing sunlight through my curtains. Orange uniform. Take a pic next time. And don't open the door if you didn't order. Yeah, I typed okay and put my phone down. Then I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to every tiny sound outside. After that, the stalking stopped being subtle. It became creative. One morning, I opened my door to pick up the newspaper. There was a small parcel on my doorstep, no label, no tape, just a plain cardboard box folded shut. I stared at it for a long time, my heart thudding. Then I nudged it with my foot. Nothing. I picked it up, holding it away from my body like it was dirty. It was light. I carried it inside and placed it on my kitchen counter. For 5 minutes, I just stood there looking at it. Then I grabbed scissors and cut it open. Inside was a single item, a small plastic hair clip, mine. The one I'd lost 2 days ago, the one I'd been sure I dropped somewhere in my room. My hands started shaking. I turned the clip over. There was something scratched into the plastic, like someone had used a pin or a blade open. I dropped it like it burned. My breath came fast and shallow. I backed away from the counter, eyes fixed on the box like it could move. The clip wasn't just a message, it was proof. He had been inside or close enough to touch my things, or close enough to take something from me. I checked every lock, I checked every window. Nothing looked broken, nothing looked forced. That made it worse. That evening, I went to the Sharma auntie's house across the street. I didn't even like her much. She was the kind of woman who asked you why you weren't married yet, like it was a crime. But I needed another human being. When she opened the door, she looked surprised. Yes, I forced a smile. Auntie, do you know the delivery guy who comes here a lot? The one in orange uniform? Her face brightened like I'd asked about her favorite TV show. Oh, yes, yes. He comes often. Good boy. Always polite. My stomach sank. Do you know his name? She frowned. Why? I just wanted to complain. He asked me personal questions, she laughed. Are, these people talk. Don't take seriously. He is just friendly. No, auntie. He asked if I live alone. Her laugh faded slightly. She waved her hand dismissively. They ask like that sometimes for safety. You know, women delivery. I stared at her. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. You should not order so much. Men noticed. I felt something hot rise in my chest. Men noticed like it was my fault for existing. I forced another smile and stepped back. Okay, thank you. As I walked home, I felt the neighborhood watching me. Not just him, everyone. The next day, I bought a small camera online, a cheap one, the kind that connected to your phone. I placed it near the window facing the porch. It made me feel slightly better, like I was fighting back, like I was taking my life back. It arrived 2 days later, delivered by him, of course. This time I didn't open the door. I watched through the peephole as he stood there, holding the box. He rang the bell once, then again. Then he leaned closer to the door and spoke softly like he was talking to someone inside.
I know you're home.
My blood turned to ice. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I watched his helmeted head tilt slightly like he was listening for movement. Then he did something that made my stomach flip. He placed the package down And then he pressed his gloved hand flat against my door, not knocking, not pushing, just touching, like he was feeling the barrier between us. He kept it there for a long moment. Then he leaned in closer, and his voice came through the wood, muffled but clear enough.
You lock it so tight, like I'm a thief.
He laughed softly, then he walked away. I stayed frozen behind the door for 5 minutes. When I finally picked up the package, my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. If you've listened so far, you probably liked the story. Consider subscribing for more such stories. That night I checked the camera feed constantly. Every time a cat moved in the lane, I jumped. Every time a bike passed, I held my breath. I slept with my phone in my hand, and I had dreams where someone stood on my porch, smiling, holding a package that was dripping. It got worse in small ways. A knock at midnight, a missed call from an unknown number, a WhatsApp message from a new account with no display picture. Opened the curtains, I blocked it, another account appeared the next day. Did you sleep well? Blocked, another. I saw you. Turn off the light, blocked. I stopped turning off the lights. I slept with the bedroom lamp on. I started keeping a kitchen knife under my pillow. I knew it was stupid. If someone actually broke in, a kitchen knife wouldn't save me, but it made me feel less helpless. One evening, Raya came over. She took one look at my face and said, "Dude, you look like you haven't slept in a week." I haven't, I admitted. I told her everything. The package with my hair clip, the messages, the delivery guy. She listened, her expression growing darker. When I finished, she said, "Okay, we're going to the police." My stomach twisted. What if they don't take it seriously? Then we keep going until someone does. We went. The police station smelled like sweat and old paper. The officer behind the desk barely looked up as we spoke. When I explained, he frowned like I was describing a stray dog problem. "A delivery boy," he said. "Yes." "He's stalking me." He leaned back in his chair. "Has he touched you?" "No." "Has he entered your house?" "I don't know." "So what crime has happened?" Ria snapped. "Harassment, stalking, threatening messages." The officer sighed like she was a child. "Madam, these are small things. If he comes again, call us." "If he comes again, it might be too late," I said, my voice shaking. He shrugged, then stopped ordering. I stared at him. Stop ordering, like that was the solution. Like the problem was my groceries. Ria grabbed my arm and pulled me out before I started crying in front of them. Outside, she said, "Okay, police are useless. We handle it ourselves." That sentence should have comforted me. It didn't. Because the idea of handling it ourselves made me realize how alone I really was. The next day, I found a note tucked into my gate, a small folded piece of paper pushed through the bars. My hands trembled as I opened it inside, in neat handwriting. "I deliver to everyone, but I come back to you." I felt nauseous. I ran inside and locked the door. Then I checked the camera footage. The camera had recorded the porch, not the gate. I couldn't see who put it there, but I could imagine him standing outside, sliding the note through, smiling. The breaking point came on a Sunday. I remember because Sundays were usually peaceful. Families walked around, kids played cricket, people bought ice cream from the cart at the corner. That day, I tried to force myself to be normal. I made tea. I sat by the window with my laptop. I even opened the curtains a little, just to let in light. I told myself I wouldn't let fear control me. Then I saw him across the street. Not delivering, just standing near the temple, helmet off, looking straight at my house. When our eyes met, he didn't look away. He smiled, and then he lifted his hand. Not a wave. A slow motion, like he was drawing a line in the air from his eyes to mine. Then he pointed at my window. I stepped back so fast I knocked over my tea. It spilled on the floor. I didn't care. I ran to the door and locked it again, heart pounding. I checked the camera feed. He was walking toward my house, slowly. No package, no phone, just walking like he owned the lane. My throat tightened. I grabbed my phone and called Ria. She picked up on the second ring. "What's up?" "He's coming," I whispered. "What? Who?" "The delivery guy. He's walking to my house right now." "Okay, lock everything, don't open, I'm coming." My hands shook as I set the phone down. I stood behind the door listening. Footsteps on the porch, slow, deliberate. Then the doorbell. Once, twice, then a knock. Not loud, not urgent, just polite, like he was a guest. I didn't move, I didn't breathe. The knock came again. Then his voice, soft, amused.
You opened the curtains today.
My stomach dropped.
I like that.
I pressed my back against the door, trying not to make a sound. He chuckled. Then he said something that made my entire body go numb.
I know what you smell like.
I covered my mouth with my hand to stop myself from making a noise. Outside, he continued, voice calm, almost gentle. You smell like soap, and tea, and fear. I felt tears sting my eyes. Then I heard something scrape against the door. Metal. My brain screamed, lockpick, knife, tool. I stumbled backward. The scraping stopped. Silence. Then he laughed softly.
I'm joking.
He said, relax. Another pause. Then,
But you should relax when I tell you.
my vision blurred. I backed away from the door, grabbing the kitchen knife from the counter. I held it with both hands, the blade shaking. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just needed something. Outside, the footsteps moved away. I heard him step off the porch. I waited and waited. Then the doorbell rang again. This time, when I looked through the peephole, I saw nothing. Empty porch. My breath came out in a shaky exhale. Then I noticed something on the ground, a small box. I didn't open the door. I just stared at it through the peephole. The box was open, and inside was something pale, something soft. I didn't want to know, I didn't want to see, but my brain forced the image anyway. A piece of cloth folded. I recognized it instantly. My stomach flipped. It was my t-shirt, the one I'd thrown in the laundry basket yesterday, the one that had been inside my house. I stumbled backward, almost falling. My ears rang. My hands went numb. How? How? I checked the locks again, frantic. Everything was locked. Everything, unless it wasn't him breaking in. Unless it was someone else. Unless a sound came from inside my house. A soft creak from the hallway. My blood froze. I stood completely still. Knife in hand. Eyes wide listening. Another creak. Closer. My brain screamed at me to run, but my legs didn't move. Then I saw it, a shadow at the end of the hallway. Not tall, not broad, just a shape, standing there watching. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. The shadow stepped forward, and I saw his face. No helmet, no uniform, just him inside my house, smiling. I screamed. I ran. I didn't even think. I ran to the back door, fumbling with the lock, hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the knife. Behind me, he didn't chase, he just laughed, soft, like I'd entertained him. I threw the back door open and ran outside barefoot, screaming for help. The neighbors stared, someone shouted, someone grabbed my arm. I looked back. The back door was open, the hallway was dark. He was gone. Ria arrived 10 minutes later. The police arrived 20 minutes after that. By then, I was sitting on the curb, shaking so hard my teeth hurt. The officers searched the house. They found nothing. No first entry, no signs of anyone, but they did find the laundry basket. My t-shirt was missing. I showed them the box on the porch. One officer lifted it with a pen like it was disgusting. He looked at me differently then, not like I was overreacting, like he finally understood this wasn't small things. They asked me questions. Did I know him? Did I talk to him? Did I invite him in? Did I have enemies? Each question felt like blame. I kept saying no. The truth was simpler and worse. I didn't know him. And he still chose me. I didn't stay in that house after that. I packed a bag and went to my parents' place that same night. I left everything behind. My laptop, my clothes, my books. I didn't care. I just wanted walls that didn't feel thin. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep properly. Every time the doorbell rang, my heart stopped. Every time someone knocked, I felt sick. Even at my parents' house, I kept checking the windows, kept checking the locks, kept listening for footsteps. A month later, the police called. They had found him, not because of my case, because he'd done it to someone else. A woman in another neighborhood. A different lane, a different house, same uniform, same pattern. They said he had been using delivery routes to learn schedules, to watch women, to memorize routines. They said he had kept small items from them, hair clips, scarves, a bracelet, things that proved he could reach into their lives, things that proved they weren't safe. When they arrested him, he didn't resist, he just smiled, the same smile. They told me he asked one question at the station, not about his job, not about his punishment, not about the women. He asked, did she open the curtains? Even now, months later, I can't look at delivery uniforms the same way. I can't hear a bike slow down outside without my stomach tightening. I can't leave my curtains open at night because sometimes when the streetlight hits the window just right, I imagine a face outside, watching, waiting, smiling, like I'm still just another address on his route, like I'm still something that can be delivered to. Story 3. When I first moved into the neighborhood, I promised myself I wouldn't get paranoid. I'd already done that once, turned every sound into a threat, every stranger into a suspect, every shadow into a person. It had eaten months of my life and left me exhausted, jumpy, and embarrassed. So when I moved into house 18B, I decided I would be normal, I would wave at neighbors, I would smile, I would make polite small talk, I would not obsess over who was looking at me and why. I would live like I belonged in the world. For the first few weeks it worked. The lane was ordinary, middle class, safe in that boring way. Kids played cricket in the evenings. Auntie sat in plastic chairs and judged everyone's groceries. The air smelled like frying onions and dust. People complained about water pressure and electricity cuts like it was their religion. My house wasn't fancy. It was the kind of place you rented when you wanted privacy and peace, not status. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a living room that always looked slightly dim no matter how many lights I turned on. I worked from home, writing, editing, doing small freelance jobs. Most days, I didn't even leave the house except to take the trash out or collect the newspaper. That routine should have felt comforting. Instead, it made me visible. Because when you're home all day, people start noticing. They notice when you open your curtains. They notice when you don't. They notice what time you water plants, what time you turn off lights, what time you step out onto the porch. And I learned that in my lane, there was one person who noticed more than anyone, the man in 20C. House 20C was 2 houses down from mine, on the opposite side. The house looked normal from outside. Clean gate, a small patch of plants, a motorbike parked inside, always in the exact same position like someone measured the angle. The man living there didn't fit the neighborhood. He wasn't old enough to be one of the retired uncles. He wasn't young enough to be a college student. Somewhere in between. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. Thin, tall, a little too still when he stood. I first saw him the day I moved in. I was carrying a box of books inside, sweating, already irritated, and I felt someone watching me. I looked up. He was standing in his doorway, holding a mug of tea like he'd been waiting for something to happen. He didn't wave, he didn't smile, he just watched, not like a curious neighbor, like a person studying an animal in a cage. I held his gaze for a second, then looked away and went inside. I told myself it meant nothing. For the first week, he didn't speak to me at all, which honestly I liked. I'm not the type who enjoys neighbors dropping in. I don't like forced friendliness. I don't like the way some people treat a single woman living alone like a public project. So when he ignored me, I took it as a blessing. Then one morning I opened my door to collect the newspaper, and I found a small object on my doormat. A coin, not a normal coin. An old, dull coin, darkened, scratched, heavy looking. It didn't belong there. I stared at it for a few seconds, confused. Maybe someone dropped it. Maybe a kid was playing. I picked it up. It was warm. That made my stomach tighten. It shouldn't have been warm. I hadn't stepped outside yet. The sun wasn't strong. The stone tiles were cool. But the coin felt like it had just been in someone's palm. I turned it over. On one side was a faint symbol, something like a flower or maybe a star. On the other side was a date I couldn't read. I didn't want it. I didn't want to keep a random thing from my doorstep, so I did what any sane person would do. I walked to the corner and dropped it into the storm drain. It made a soft metallic clink as it fell. And that was that, or so I thought. The next day, the coin was back on my doormat again. Same coin, same scratches, same dull color, same faint symbol. My stomach dropped. I stared at it like it was a dead insect. There was no way it could have climbed out of the drain. There was no way the exact same coin could have returned. Unless someone put it there. My skin prickled. I looked up and down the lane. No one. Then I felt it. That sensation like a finger pressed gently between my shoulder blades. I turned my head. The man in 20C stood at his gate. He was watching me. This time, he smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a neighborly smile, a small private smile like he'd just confirmed something. I froze. He lifted his mug slightly like a toast. Then he went back inside. I didn't pick up the coin. I stepped over it and went back in, locking the door behind me. I didn't tell anyone. Not because I wasn't scared, because it sounded ridiculous. A coin keeps appearing on my doormat. What was I supposed to do? Call the police? I could already hear the bored voice on the other end. Madam, it's just a coin. So I tried to ignore it. But ignoring things doesn't make them disappear. It just tells whoever is doing it that you're quiet, that you'll tolerate it. Over the next week, small things started happening. My gate would be slightly open in the mornings, even though I remembered locking it. My slippers would be turned around, toes facing the door instead of away. Once I found my name written in chalk on the wall beside my gate. Just my first name, neat handwriting. Like someone had practiced, I scrubbed it off until my fingers hurt. That evening, I noticed something worse. My curtains. I always kept them closed at night. Always. But when I went into the living room, the curtains were parted slightly. Just a small gap. Not enough for a full view. Enough for an eye. Enough for someone outside to see a slice of my room. A slice of me. I stood there staring at the gap for a long time. My heart beat loud in my ears. Then I closed them tightly and checked every window latch. Everything was locked. Everything was secure. Which meant the curtains hadn't been opened from inside. They'd been opened from outside. My hands went cold. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed with my phone in my hand listening. Every time the wind moved, I flinched. Every time a dog barked, I held my breath. Around 2:40 am, I heard footsteps, soft, slow, not running, not sneaking, just walking. Like someone had all the time in the world. They stopped outside my house. I held my breath. Then I heard it, a small metallic sound, a coin hitting stone and rolling. My stomach twisted. The footsteps walked away. I stayed frozen for 10 minutes. When I finally forced myself to move, I grabbed a torch and went to the front door. I didn't open it, I just looked through the peephole. The lane was empty, but on my doormat, perfectly centered again, was the coin. The next morning, I went to the Sharma auntie's house across the street, not because I liked her, because she was always outside, always watching, always collecting gossip like it was oxygen. If anyone had seen something, she would. She opened the door and looked me up and down like I was a delivery. Yes, auntie, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Have you noticed anything strange in the lane at night? Like someone walking around, she blinked. Why? I keep finding things on my doorstep. Her eyes sharpened. Interest, what things? I hesitated. A coin, it keeps appearing. She laughed. Are, maybe Lakshmi's blessing you? I didn't laugh. Her smile faded a little. Why you look so scared? Because it's the same coin. And I threw it away. She stared at me for a moment, then lowered her voice. You mean someone is doing it? I nodded. She leaned forward, whispering like we were discussing murder. Is it that man from 20C? My throat tightened. You know him? Her face twisted. He is odd. What do you mean? She hesitated, like she enjoyed the drama but didn't want to commit. He came last year alone. No family, no visitors. Sometimes he goes out at night. Sometimes he stands outside like statue. My stomach sank. Has anyone complained? I asked. Sharma. Auntie shrugged. No proof of anything, but people avoid. Do you know his name? She frowned. I heard Mr. K, just K. She nodded. That's what he told the milkman. I felt a chill, Mr. K, like a character. Like a person who wanted to be a mystery. I thanked her and went home. My lane looked the same, but it didn't feel the same anymore. It felt like a stage. and I was the main act. That evening, I decided to confront him. Not aggressively, not stupidly, just confirm. I waited until the sun was still up, until people were outside, until kids were playing. Then I walked down the lane toward house 20C. My heart hammered the entire time. When I reached his gate, I stopped. The gate was closed, the porch was empty, then the front door opened. He stepped out. No mug today, no phone, just him. He looked at me with that calm, unreadable face. "Hello," he said. His voice was normal, that made it worse. Because normal voices can say terrible things. "Hi," I said. My throat was dry. "I'm your neighbor. I live in 18B. "I know," he said immediately. Too fast, too certain. I forced a small smile. I wanted to ask, have you noticed anyone leaving things outside houses, like coins or notes? He blinked slowly, then he smiled. "Coins?" he repeated, like he was tasting the word. Yes, he stepped closer to the gate, his fingers wrapping around the bars casually. His eyes didn't leave my face. "No," he said softly. "But I think it's good you noticed." My stomach clenched. "What do you mean?" I asked. His smile widened slightly. "It means you pay attention," he said. "Most people don't." I swallowed. "It's not funny," he tilted his head. "I didn't say it was funny." The way he said it made my skin crawl, like he genuinely didn't understand why I was upset, like my fear was a strange hobby. I took a step back. He didn't move, but his eyes followed me. "Good night," I said quickly, even though it wasn't night. He smiled again. "Good night," he replied. As I walked away, I felt his gaze on my back like heat. After that, the coins stopped appearing. For 3 days, nothing happened. No objects, no chalk, no footsteps. I started to relax just a little. I told myself I'd scared him off. I told myself it was over. Then, on the 4th day, I got home from a short grocery run and found my front door unlocked. Not open, just unlocked. My hand froze on the handle. My blood ran cold. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the door like it might breathe. Then I pushed it open slowly. The house was quiet, too quiet. The air smelled different, like something had been disturbed. I stepped inside carefully. My living room looked normal. My kitchen looked normal. My bedroom door was slightly open. I hadn't left it open. I walked toward it, my pulse pounding. Inside, everything looked the same, except my bed. On my pillow, perfectly centered like a gift, was the coin, and beside it, a strand of hair. My hair coiled neatly, like someone had gathered it with patience. My stomach flipped. I backed away shaking. Then I saw the mirror. On my dressing table mirror, written in red lipstick, were 3 words. "You left it open." My breath came out in a shaky sound. My hands trembled so badly I could barely hold my phone. I ran out of the house and locked the door, then stood outside like an idiot, staring at my own home like it belonged to someone else. I called my friend Ria. She answered immediately. "What's wrong?" "He was inside," I whispered. "What? Who?" "The neighbor. The man in 20C. He got inside." Ria swore. "Are you safe right now?" "I'm outside. Go to Sharma auntie's house." "Right now, I'm coming." I ran across the lane, knocking on Sharma auntie's door like my life depended on it. She opened it, saw my face, and her expression changed instantly. Without asking, she pulled me inside. Ria arrived in 20 minutes. We called the police. This time they came. 2 officers walked through my house with bored faces until they saw the lipstick on the mirror. Then their expressions changed. Not because they cared, because now there was something visible. Something they could photograph, something they could write down. They asked questions. They checked locks. They inspected windows. Everything was intact. No forced entry. One officer frowned and said, "Maybe you forgot to lock." I stared at him. "I did lock it," I said. He shrugged. "Then someone has a key." My stomach dropped. A key, a copy, a duplicate. The officer asked, "Do you have a spare key?" "Yes," I said, "in my kitchen drawer." We went to the drawer. It was open, empty. My spare key was gone. I felt sick. The officer wrote something down. Then he said, "We will talk to the neighbor." I grabbed his arm. "Please," I said, voice shaking. "Please take this seriously." He looked at me. and for a moment I thought I saw pity. Then he pulled his arm away. "We will see," he said. They went to house 20C. Ria and I stood across the lane watching. Sharma auntie stood behind us, whispering prayers under her breath. The officers knocked. No answer. They knocked again. No answer. One officer peered through the gate. Then he tried the latch. The gate opened. My stomach tightened. They went inside. They knocked on the front door. Still nothing. Then one officer turned and looked at us. His expression was unreadable. He said something to the other officer. Then they stepped back and forced the door open. I held my breath. Ria's hand gripped mine. The officers went inside. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, they came out. One of them was holding something, a plastic bag. Inside it, I saw a bundle of keys, not just one. Many. My skin went cold. The officer looked at me. "Are any of these yours?" My throat tightened. I stepped forward, hands shaking, and stared at the keys through the plastic. There, a small silver key with a blue plastic head. Mine, my spare key. My vision blurred. I nodded. Yes. The officer's jaw tightened. He said, "Come inside house 20C. The air was stale. Not like a normal closed house. Like a place nobody lived in. Like a storage room. The living room was almost empty. No family photos, no TV, no decorations, just a chair and a small table. On the table was a notebook open, filled with handwriting. Neat, careful writing. The officer flipped through it. I couldn't stop myself from looking. The pages were filled with dates and times. 18B. Lights off 11:42 18B. Curtains closed 7:10 18B. Leaves for grocery 4:32 18B. Returns 5:11. My stomach turned. It was my routine, my life, written down like a schedule. Then I saw another page. A list of houses. Not just mine. 19A, 21B, 17C. Names, times, notes. My throat tightened. He wasn't just watching me. He was watching everyone. But he had focused on me. Because I was alone. Because I was quiet. Because I didn't have someone coming and going. The officer turned to a door at the back of the house. It was locked. He tried the knob. It didn't move. He looked at the other officer. They exchanged a glance. Then he used one of the keys from the bag. The door opened and the smell hit me. I can't describe it properly. Not like rot. Not like garbage. Something sour, something damp, something human. I covered my mouth. The officer stepped inside. The room was small. No windows. Just a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. The light flickered, making the shadows jump. And on the walls there were photographs. Dozens, hundreds pinned and taped like a collage. Photos of women. Photos of houses. Photos of windows. Photos taken from angles that made my stomach twist. Some were taken from the street, some were taken from behind plants, some were taken from places that were too close. Then I saw mine. A photo of me in my living room, sitting on my couch, hair tied up, laptop on my knees. A candid moment, a private moment, a moment I never knew was being watched. My knees went weak. Ria caught my arm. I stared at the photo like it was a dead body, because in a way, it was proof that my privacy was already dead. Then I saw something worse. On a shelf in the corner were small objects, hair clips, scrunchies, a bracelet, a bangle, a scarf, a small bottle of perfume, a lipstick, a collection, trophies. And in the middle of it, placed like it mattered most, was my coin. I didn't stay in that neighborhood after that. Not another night. I didn't pack properly. I didn't take most of my things. I just left. Because once someone has watched you like that, the place stops being a home. It becomes a memory of fear. The police later told me they couldn't find him. House 20C had been rented under a fake name. No proper documents, no records. The man was gone before they broke the door, gone like smoke. All they had were his keys, his notebook, his room of photographs, and my spare key sitting in a plastic bag like a dead insect. For months afterward, I couldn't stop thinking about the last thing I saw in that room. Not the photos, not the objects, not even the notebook. It was a small sticky note pinned beside my picture, written in the same neat handwriting. "She looks best when she doesn't know." I moved back in with my parents for a while. I started therapy. I changed my number. I deleted my delivery apps. I stopped posting photos online. I did everything people tell you to do when you've been violated without being touched, and slowly the fear faded. Not completely, but enough that I could breathe again, enough that I could sleep with the lights off, enough that I could open curtains without feeling like I was exposing myself. Then, one evening, months later, my mother called me from the living room. "There's someone at the gate," she said. I froze. "What?" "He's asking for you," she said. My blood ran cold. I walked slowly to the window and peeked through the curtain. A man stood outside, thin, tall, too still. He was wearing plain dark clothes. He looked up and smiled. My stomach dropped. Then he lifted his hand, and in his palm, resting like a gift, was the coin.